welcome y'all. This is the latest deep dive of Unfinished Business. I am your co-host, Andre Joseph of Epyx Productions. And the main man, as always, here, the boss, Mr. Jeff Gallashaw.
Deep dive!
Yes,
Season's greetings!
Season's greetings.
Season's greetings from the deep dive. We're down here. And
so, with this week's pick that I have, I decided we're going to go back to the 90s. And I wanted to do an action film that probably doesn't get a whole lot of appreciation. There's a lot of reasons why it doesn't. And this one is from 1994. It is Drop Zone, starring Wesley Snipes. And this was a movie that came out pretty much at the height of his popularity as a big action star. At that time, obviously, he had broken out with 1991's New Jack City playing Nino Brown. But there was the later films he did after that that really blew him up, such as White Man Can't Jump. Of course, Passenger 57 put him into the genre as the surprisingly good action hero. And then throughout 1993, he was nonstop working Boiling Point, Rising Sun, Sugar Hill. And, he pretty much had replaced Eddie Murphy as like maybe the number one box office attraction who was African American. So Drop Zone certainly fit that bill as one of those pictures that certainly, I guess, they saw, oh, there's a big action scene on a plane, so let's put Wesley Snipes in it, because apparently it was offered to Steven Seagal for $15 million and he turned it down. I don't know how I could have seen Steven Seagal do skydiving, but apparently they thought it was worthwhile after Under Siege, so who knows. So this film, he's basically playing a character similar to what he played in Passenger 57, but different. He's a U.S. Marshal, and he and his brother, played by, surprisingly enough, Theo from The Cosby Show, Malcolm Jamal Warner,
he seems
they
like
are
a
assigned to extradite a prisoner who's a computer hacker played by the late, great Michael Jeter. And supposedly on the flight gets hijacked by a group of thieves, the thieves led by the legendary Gary Busey, who apparently is a former DEA agent gone rogue. And basically they set up this plot to break out Michael Jeter's character and skydive their way out of this 747, which goes out of control. And in the midst of trying to save the passengers, Malcolm Jamal Warner character dies. So everybody's sad because Theo Huxtable for The Cosby Show dies in the picture. Wesley wants revenge. He wants to know how the fuck did these guys manage to get out of a 747 and survive it. And he does some research, and then he tracks down this skydiving expert played by Yancey Butler in one of her first real big roles. She had just done Hard Target with Van Damme playing the romantic interest. Here she's playing a skydiving expert who we find out was in a relationship with one of the thieves. And she basically helps Wesley train with her and join her skydiving team while he's looking for the villains. And in the midst of it, when one of the witnesses identifies her ex-boyfriend as one of the thieves, Gary Busey, who has all these connections, finds out, and then he has this guy killed. So now she wants revenge on Gary Busey. And everything is pretty much building up to where they find out his plot, which is to skydive into different law enforcement agencies, get information on all the DEA undercover agents through Michael Jeter's skills, and sell them off to the black market so they could wipe these guys out and, pay them like $2 million a month. So Wesley is basically with this team to find these guys, get revenge for his brother's death, and everything is supposed to build up to this big skydiving event in Washington, D.C., which Busey and his team are going to use as cover to break into the DEA headquarters and do this bigger heist. But Wesley's going to change their schedule because he's going to go and kick their asses and avenge his brother. So that's Drop Zone in a nutshell. It was directed by John Badham, who was a very big journeyman in that day. Like, he did movies that you wouldn't think that were all done by the same guy. Saturday Night Fever, 1979's Dracula, Stakeout, Short Circuit, Blue Thunder, War Games. I mean, the guy's career is legendary. I even have his directing book in my room right now. And so this was kind of at the tail end when his films were starting to kind of dip off a bit in terms of box office. So this was one of his last big studio pictures before he started doing more television work and teaching. The writers, I believe, had conceived the idea because they were professional stunt skydivers, and then I guess they passed it off to some professional writers to make it into more of an action picture. So this was at the same time as movies like Speed and Terminal Velocity with Charlie Sheen, which they were trying to compete with. They were trying to get it done with a bigger budget and, you know, more efforts and reshoots to try to make it more competitive with that film. Neither one of them really are that great or that memorable to begin with, but there was this whole thing with extreme sports that was like big in Hollywood at that time. They were injecting into movies, so this was no exception. And yeah, I mean, it's a guilty pleasure. The first time I saw it was with my aunt and my cousin. They had rented it from Blockbuster, so I was staying over one weekend. I watched it with them because we were all big Wesley Snipes fans. And I don't remember loving it as much as Passenger 57. It was okay, but I thought it was kind of quick. It wasn't really as action-packed as I would have liked it to be. It seemed like for all that Wesley was doing in there, it seemed to fall more into the other characters that they were like on the team. So Yancey Butler's characters, Kyle Secor playing Swoop, and all these other guys that were kind of like Corin Nemec from Park Lewis Can't Lose. They were all kind of like on this ragtag team. It seemed to be more about like the skydiving than the action. So I know I'm all over the place with this, but it seemed like the movie was more of a showcase for that than having a good story and a good plot. So Jeff, talk about your experience with Drop Zone.
Drop Zone started off as I guess I had heard the story about like Steven Seagal turned down $15 million to star in this film so he could go make Under Siege 2 Dark Territory. We saw how that turned out. But then I know that they had offered it also, or supposedly offered it to Gina Davis, changing the sex of the main character, and she turned it down. And then they went to our old favorite, Gene Hackman, and he turned it down. And
Gene Hackman skydiving?
Hey, exactly. See, it sells itself. You know? It probably would have been his son, not his brother, who he's avenging, though. You know? Oh, my brother, played by Morgan Freeman.
Oh,
you know? It's like, you guys should really retire. You know? Well, Malcolm Jamal Warner being in it, he feels like a special guest star almost. Yeah. He makes his presence felt, and then it's like, oh man, Malcolm Jamal Warner's in it. Boom, 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 boom. It's like, Malcolm Jamal Warner's not in this movie anymore. You know? And so I remember watching it. It could have been a sequel to Passenger 57, but then you would have been like, damn, Wesley Snipes has no luck when it comes to planes and family members. Like you said, that was the disappointing part of the film, is that even though Wesley's the face on the poster, starring Wesley Snipes, it becomes more of almost an ensemble film more than anything, and he's just the anchor that holds it together. Yeah. You know, like you said, lack of action, though there is that bathroom scene where he gets to kick people's ass. What I liked about it is that the film feels like every role in this is played by somebody you've seen in other things. So it's like, at least you have a recognizable cast. I mean, you have Parker Lewis Can't Lose. You got the weird lady from the David Lynch movie.
Yeah, from Twin Peaks.
Butler. You got the guy.
Mother.
Yep. You got the guy who has all those tattoos playing a thug yet again.
I know what you're talking about.
You got that Southern guy with the ponytail who always plays like, you know, a redneck character. You have Michael Jeter. He's probably the only person who doesn't exactly fit in this movie.
But he did his own stunts. You got to give him credit for that.
I give him that, and I like that his character gets this Stockholm Syndrome type of thing throughout the film. But my main complaint with this film is that it feels, for the most part, like, even though great stunt work, it feels like everything is on autopilot in this movie.
Yeah.
Like, you know where it's going. Everybody knows what they're supposed to play. The scenes unfold the way you expect them to. Except for some dude who's seeking revenge for the death of his brother, Wesley Snipes is very happy-go-lucky in half of these scenes, too.
It feels like Eddie Murphy should be doing this, because he's like half the time joking.
Exactly. It's like, I thought you were in this to get the people who killed your brother, you know? But also, this is a movie or a script which I like to call a seat filler, where I feel like This is one of those movies that a studio had already spent so much on the screenplay, they knew they had to put it out eventually. So they were just going through the list of anybody they could look to find it, to star in it, so that they could put it out, so that they could hopefully win the box office that weekend. They didn't care about the quality. All they cared about was having a good business relationship with whoever the star who starred in it, because usually with these type of films, which are like worth winning or sibling rivalry, it's a TV star who's making their big leap to the big screen and stars in it. So they want to get that up-and-comer right before they truly become a star. So they make a film with them, and this is usually the types of scripts they offer them. So all that this film was meant to do was put butts in seats and win the box office that weekend. I'll admit, it's one of those things, it's entirely forgettable after you finish watching it. But it is entertaining while you watch it. And I would say it's probably one of the better, as far as action movies, that Wesley Snipes has made out throughout his career. Obviously, not as good as the ones that made it to theaters, but definitely better than the ones that probably went straight to home video or in a secondary market. Even though this is still better than Boiling Point. But that's not
credit on certain points. Like, I mean, the ending fight scenes, you know, like you had him and Gary Busey basically doing their John Woo homage, you know, with the Mexican standoff and, you know, the two fisted gun stuff. I thought that was pretty cool, you know, since everybody was ripping off John Woo back then. The chick fight, you know, with Yancy Butler and the bad chick on the team was different to do at that point. And again, it's funny how Yancy Butler's character was supposed to be written as a man, and then they decided, you know, to change it to a woman, she still wanted to get punched out by Wesley Snipes, so they allowed that in after his first skydive. So I think like that stuff was kind of cool to see, and to see, like, you know, the whole team kind of get their moment at the end with the bad guys and not just make Wesley do all the work. One thing I didn't like about this movie was the Hans Zimmer score. Now, it's been used a lot in trailers, but they use the same fucking theme every time there's a skydiving scene, and it gets annoying after 90 minutes. It's just like, this was just lazy cut and paste. Like, John Badham was just being a programmer at that point. There was like no passion put into this movie except to do the skydiving scene safely and to highlight that. But even so, it's just background filler for, you know, a very mediocre premise. And because the movie had that going for it, the Paramount King's Dominion theme park would have their own ride, Drop Zone. I think it was like Safety something, but they changed the name recently. All I know is there's a Drop Zone themed attraction where you get to be like on the flying thing with the fan, like you could actually fly like you're skydiving.
Well, that's how they film Snipe scenes.
Yeah.
I mean, look, it's probably one of the more blander action films that Wesley Snipes has starred in. But like you said, the supporting cast helps save the film, or at least their character types help save the film. And with the music cues, especially when Corin Nemec's character has an accident,
oh my God, yeah,
that music you have heard in 50,000. I think I even heard it in one of the Lethal Weapon sequels. And it might as well be followed by Only 2 Days to Retirement. That's what I would call that music cue.
It was basically the Goose moment of the movie, except he doesn't die.
No, he gets to live. The only scene that was unexpected but cute was when Kyle Sikora's character goes to get Michael Jeter's character and then ends up like breaking his leg. And then that's the first time Kyle Sikora's character actually talks to Wesley Snipes, because now he considers himself truly part of the team and a true skydiver, because they make a point throughout the film of him never speaking to him directly because he doesn't consider him one of the team. So it's just like one of those, I finally made it. You know, I caught my brother's killer. This guy likes me. I'm going to let you off of your parole, Yancy Butler, and we're not going to make out. You know, though I do have to note of this. I don't know if it was Wesley Snipes or the costume design. Wesley Snipes' wardrobe in this movie
Oh,
is
no.
truly spectacular. I have never seen so many oranges and browns in my life. I sat there wondering, was this supposed to be the 70s with his wardrobe?
It's Florida.
Still, all those oranges and browns, it was just ridiculous. Malcolm Jamal Warner's character is turning over in his grave. And,
I'll admit, it's the kind of movie that makes you hungry for candy.
Yes, which Gary Busey was full of throughout. I mean, he bites off Michael Jeter's finger. So, come on. This is Busey on it. This was when Busey ceased being so much of a serious actor.
Yeah, this is not Lethal Weapon Gary Busey. This is like Black Sheep Gary Busey.
This isn't even Under Siege Gary Busey.
No.
It's like, oh man, how the mighty. Then I guess if Steven Seagal would have taken it, it would have been a reunion. But I will say, even though Steven Seagal turned it down, and like you said, I don't know how they would have worked it in. He would have sunk faster than everybody else. It would have matched his pedigree more. Like Wesley Snipes has a great pedigree of movies. This is not the worst, but it's like, yeah, that one. Whereas Steven Seagal, you'd be like, yeah, this fits. Maybe not. There's no scenes for him to break arms in, but it would have been his biggest payday. But no, he wanted, I guess, sexually harass underage Katherine Heigl on the set of Under Siege 2. That was more important. Or maybe Yancey Butler was not his type. She was, more his age, so he wasn't interested. So, or maybe she had liberal views. So, but like I said, I like John Badham as a director.
I think he's a very good director.
I didn't even mind his remake or his directed remake of La Femme Nikita.
Yeah.
But yeah, this, you could tell his heart wasn't in it as much. You could tell he was like, of course, for skydiving scenes, I have to make sure safety and we get all the good angles, but everything else is just like, it's sort of like that scene in Jay and Silent Bob, where Gus Van Sant is supposed to be directing Good Will Hunting 2, and he's too busy counting his money.
Yeah.
It just feels like that, That is how I feel like it was whenever there was any scene that didn't involve skydiving with Sean Badham directing.
Probably the most effort he put in was his cameo as the boat captain.
See, I didn't even know he played the boat captain.
Because only in there for like 2 seconds.
It also makes me wonder if he was just like on the set telling everybody the stories of the good movies he made. When I was making this, it was so much better.
I'm sure he was bombarded with questions about Saturday Night Fever.
Of course. I'm sure he still is. I don't think anybody's like, no, drop zone, right? He probably even, well, I'm sure he doesn't disavow it, but it's probably not something he talks about that much, But like I said, it's entertaining for what it is. As long as you don't expect much, you'll be entertained. But if you're like really expecting like primo Snipes action, you're gonna be like, yeah, this is disappointing. And sorry, ladies, no, Wesley does not kiss or get it on with anybody in this movie.
Definitely not Nancy Butler.
Oh no. He's too busy making jokes after the death of his brother. So, in fact, this could have been a Beverly Hills Cop sequel.
It felt like it could have been at that time. I probably would have said, make this movie instead of that amusement park shit.
It couldn't have been any worse. So I'd be like, I would have been satisfied. I would have been like, probably still not as good as the first two films, but it's something. It's
better direction. Not John Landis.
Exactly. I mean, the joking attitude would have fit right in. And I don't know where you're going to put Billy and Taggart in this movie, but we'll find a way. And, we don't have to worry about, there being no romance because, half the time Eddie doesn't romance his female co-stars.
Well, I wonder if Kyle Secor and then the fat guy from Cliffhanger, if they were supposed to be like the Rosewood and Taggart of the movie.
where Taggart doesn't want to talk to Wesley at all. Like, I don't even refer to him by name. It's like, well, I figure Corin Nemec would have to be the Billy.
Yeah, I would think so.
But I can definitely say this is way better than Terminal Velocity. Because unfortunately, I saw Terminal Velocity at a sneak preview. So I know.
Me and my cousin thought that was going to be like the hottest movie. And then what the hell?
Was it purely because of the scene with Charlie Sheen on that jet propulsion and his face being distorted?
I think that might have been it, yeah.
I knew the movie was in trouble as soon as I saw Christopher McDonald with dyed blonde hair. I was like, this isn't going to go well for the rest of this movie. And as good looking as Natasha Kinski is, she just didn't have it in that film where it was like, oh yeah, I'd go to the ends just for this woman. And it's just like, this isn't Linda Fiorentino and Gotcha, you know? And no offense, Charlie Sheen, aren't you a little old to be a skydiving instructor, even at that point in your career? Right. And though that movie does have, it gives me one of my favorite lines: "Pack your bags, we're going on a guilt trip." And said by the great Charlie Sheen, and the only movie in which you'll see James Gandolfini play a Russian. Oh God! But that is a whole story in of itself. Yeah. That movie. So, any final thoughts on Drop Zone?
If you're looking for a good Wesley Snipes action movie, I recommend either Passenger 57 or Blade.
That's good. I mean, I don't know. I have a weird liking of Art of War, but that might be because of his female co-star. Yeah. So, but yeah, I agree. Go watch Blade or Passenger 57, or even Liberty Stands Still, even though he doesn't do any action in it. So, but this is, I would say, check this out as a curiosity. Like, if you just want to see it, maybe you're drunk and just need something to watch, or, you know, you're doing a deep dive on Wesley Snipes, you know, but it's definitely of its time. And you know what? Wesley survived it, you know, and he's still a great actor and a great action star, nonetheless.
Absolutely.
Better than the first pick of this for this movie. Though I still, in my multiverse, somewhere Gene Hackman is in this movie playing Wesley Snipes' character.
I would pay to see that.
Exactly. See, they did not know the gold mine they missed. But that ends this business of deep dive for this week. But you know, we always have unfinished business. So, folks, happy holidays. Stay safe out there. I hope you get all that you wished for Christmas. And I hope that there's plenty of warm milk and cookies. Andre, any, I guess, end of the year and holiday wishes to send out there?
Blessings and happiness for a whole new year. Be safe out there. Do what you need to do. Be with your family. And, you know, cherish every day as much as you can. Nothing is promised to us. So, you know, really embrace this holiday as much as you can.
And we will see you next year, folks. Hopefully, maybe our next episode will be our own best and worst of 2021. And talk to you guys later. Stay cool.